In the dusty archives of a private library in Charlottesville, Virginia, amongst forgotten manuscripts and yellowed letters, an extraordinary discovery lay waiting for over 5 decades to see the light of day. The sealed envelope bore only a handwritten instruction not to be opened before 2024. Inside, the typewritten pages revealed what could be considered the most revolutionary document ever produced on the nature of human consciousness and its journey beyond physical death. It was the intimate confession of Dr. Ian Stevenson, the renowned psychiatrist from the University of Virginia, containing his deepest and most disturbing findings on reincarnation, discoveries he himself chose to keep secret during his lifetime. Dr. Stevenson had dedicated over 40 years of his scientific career investigating cases of children who claimed to remember past lives. Officially, his work was known within the academic community as rigorous studies on memory and personality. But what remained hidden, concealed even from his closest collaborators, was the absolute truth he had uncovered. Reincarnation was not merely a theoretical possibility, but an undeniable reality that challenged all the foundations of modern materialistic science. The narrative begins with a recording found alongside the documents, where Dr. Stevenson's trembling but determined voice echoes across the decades. He was 82 when he made this confession, knowing his days were numbered and that there was no more time for conventions or academic caution. In his final investigation, conducted in absolute secrecy, he had finally found the definitive proof he had been seeking his entire life: irrefutable evidence that the human soul transcends death and returns in new bodies, carrying with it memories, traumas, and unfulfilled purposes. The case that changed everything for Stevenson was that of a 6-year-old girl in Myanmar whom he met during his last field trip in 2005. The child, whose name he coded as Little Light, possessed extraordinarily specific details about the life of a woman who had died in a car accident 3 years before her birth. But what made this case different from all the others was not just the accurate memories of places, people, and events from the previous life. It was the supernatural ability the girl demonstrated to access knowledge and skills she had never learned in this life. Stevenson documented how the girl spoke fluently 3 languages completely unknown in her native village, played complex melodies on the piano without ever having seen the instrument before, and even more impressively, demonstrated advanced medical knowledge of human anatomy that baffled even specialists. During his observation sessions, the child spontaneously entered altered states of consciousness where her personality completely changed, assuming the mannerisms, tastes, and even the handwriting of the deceased woman. What deeply disturbed the researcher was discovering that the woman from the previous life had left a personal diary where she described prophetic visions of her own death and the rebirth that awaited her. In the final pages of the diary, she had drawn with astonishing accuracy the face of the family where she would choose to be reborn, including details about the house, the geographical location, and even the specific circumstances of her new birth. It was as if the soul had meticulously planned its next incarnation while still inhabiting the previous body. As Stevenson delved deeper into his investigation, he discovered that this phenomenon of prenatal planning was not an exception, but rather a universal rule governing the reincarnation process. In his secret archives, he documented hundreds of cases where souls demonstrated having consciously chosen their new families, their life lessons, and even their future challenges and sufferings. It was as if there existed an invisible dimension where disembodied consciousnesses gathered to plan their next earthly journeys, guided by a superior wisdom that transcended common human understanding. The most revolutionary aspect of his discoveries was related to the intervals between lives. Through hypnotic regression techniques that he developed in secret, Stevenson managed to map with scientific precision the stages through which the soul passed after leaving the physical body. He discovered that there is a period of review of the recently ended life, where consciousness experiences all the actions, thoughts, and emotions it had generated, not only from its own perspective, but also from the point of view of all the people it had affected during its earthly existence. This review process was not a moral judgment imposed by an external authority, but rather a natural learning experience where the soul assimilated the lessons of its previous incarnation. Stevenson documented how some souls remained in this state of review for decades or even centuries, while others quickly returned to physical form, depending on the complexity of the lessons they needed to integrate. Even more fascinating was his discovery about the existence of spirit guides, highly evolved consciousnesses that assisted souls in transition. These beings were not traditional religious figures, but rather compassionate intelligences that had completed their own cycles of earthly incarnations and now dedicated their existences to assisting other developing souls. Stevenson found evidence that each person has a group of spirit guides who accompany them through multiple lives, offering subtle guidance and protection during the most challenging moments of the evolutionary journey. The discovery that most shook the researchers' materialistic convictions was the revelation that congenital diseases, physical disabilities, and even seemingly random accidents were in fact conscious choices made by the soul before birth. In his studies, he found striking correlations between traumas from past lives and physical conditions in the present life, suggesting that the soul used these limitations as tools for learning and karmic purification. One of the most impactful cases Stevenson documented involved a boy born with a specific malformation on his right hand, a mirror image of the injury that killed his previous personality during World War II. Through detailed investigation, he verified that the man from the past life had been a soldier who died after his hand was mangled by grenade shrapnel. The boy not only possessed the physical mark of this experience, but also displayed an inexplicable fear of explosions and a deep aversion to anything related to war. What made this case even more extraordinary was that the boy's family had no knowledge of the war or the deceased soldier. Yet the child could accurately describe intimate details about the battle where the soldier had died, including the names of comrades, the exact geographical location, and even specific conversations that had occurred during the combat. When Stevenson cross-referenced this information with official military records, he discovered that every detail was factually correct. This discovery led the researcher to a revolutionary understanding of the nature of karma. He realized that karmic laws didn't operate as a punitive system of rewards and punishments, but rather as an intelligent mechanism of balance and learning. Each soul created its own life lessons through the choices it made, and these lessons manifested in future incarnations not as punishments but as opportunities for growth and integration. Stevenson discovered that karmic contracts exist between souls, agreements made on the spiritual plane before birth, where different consciousnesses agree to play specific roles in each other's lives. Abusive parents, loving partners, loyal friends, and even declared enemies were in fact souls collaborating on a higher level to provide mutual learning experiences. This revelation completely transformed his understanding of human relationships and the true purpose of earthly existence. For those following these extraordinary revelations about the true nature of human consciousness, it becomes essential to continue exploring these profound mysteries that challenge everything we thought we knew about life and death. There's much more to be discovered about the hidden dimensions of existence and the secrets that connect all forms of life in the universe. The most disturbing aspect of Stevenson's findings was related to the traumatic memories that children carried from their past lives. He documented hundreds of cases where children manifested specific phobias, recurring nightmares, and compulsive behaviors that directly corresponded to traumatic experiences from their past incarnations. Most impressively, these traumatic memories gradually dissipated as the child grew, as if the new personality was naturally processing and integrating the unresolved experiences of the previous life. In his confidential files, Stevenson recorded the phenomenon he termed dimensional bleeding, moments where the barriers between incarnations temporarily became permeable, allowing the previous personality to emerge through the new identity. During these episodes, which usually occurred during states of deep relaxation or sleep, the child would speak with the voice, mannerisms, and even the specific knowledge of the previous personality. These manifestations weren't cases of spiritual possession, as some mystical traditions suggested, but rather evidence that human consciousness was far more complex and multidimensional than conventional science recognized. Stevenson developed the theory that each incarnation was like an additional layer in the soul's total consciousness, and that all these layers remained accessible simultaneously, although usually only the most recent layer was active in the conscious personality. The most surprising discovery of his entire career happened when he realized that some children not only remembered a past life, but demonstrated simultaneous awareness of multiple past incarnations. These rare cases, which he kept under strict secrecy, revealed children capable of accessing memories, skills and knowledge from various different personalities that had inhabited the same soul in completely different times and places. One such child, whom Stevenson encountered in India, demonstrated being simultaneously a virtuoso musician from the 18th century, a German mathematician from the 19th century, and a Japanese fisherman from the feudal era. The child could switch between these personalities at will, each with its own language, specific knowledge, and even distinct food preferences. It was as if the soul had developed the ability to keep all its incarnational experiences consciously present simultaneously. This phenomenon led Stevenson to an even deeper discovery about the evolutionary nature of consciousness. He realized that older souls, those that had completed many incarnations, naturally developed the ability to integrate all their life experiences into a unified wisdom. These advanced souls often were born as prodigious children, capable of instantly accessing knowledge and skills that had taken decades to develop in previous lives. The researcher began to understand that spiritual evolution wasn't a linear process of moral improvement, but rather a complex journey of consciousness expansion, where each incarnation added new dimensions to the soul's total understanding of the nature of existence. The most evolved souls eventually transcended the need for regular physical incarnations, but many chose to return voluntarily as teachers or healers, to assist other developing consciousnesses. Stevenson discovered that these evolved beings could manifest in multiple dimensions simultaneously, existing in both the physical plane and higher spiritual planes. They served as bridges between worlds, channeling wisdom and healing energy to those still learning through the limitations of physical form. Many of history's great spiritual teachers, mystics and healers, were examples of these multidimensional souls in service to collective evolution. Dr. Julian Rees's Revelation. Dr. Julian Rees's most transformative discovery concerned the fundamental purpose of human existence on Earth. Through decades of meticulous research, he realized that planet Earth functioned as a kind of evolutionary school, where souls of varying developmental levels came to experience the unique challenges of physical life. The density of matter, the limitations of linear time, and the illusion of individual separation created ideal conditions for the accelerated growth of consciousness. Each soul chose its earthly incarnations based on the specific lessons it needed to learn, or the contributions it wished to make to humanity's collective evolution. Some souls came to experience unconditional love through motherhood, others to develop courage through extreme physical challenges, and still others to expand human understanding through scientific or artistic discoveries. What most impressed Rees's was the precision with which each life was planned down to the smallest detail. Souls not only chose their families and birth circumstances, but also orchestrated specific encounters, learning opportunities, and even the precise timing of significant events in their lives. It was as if an infinitely wise cosmic intelligence was coordinating billions of individual stories into a grand evolutionary symphony. In the final years of his life, Rees began to realize that his own existence had been carefully planned to bring these revelations to humanity at the appropriate moment in collective evolution. He understood that he had chosen to be born in an era where rigorous scientific methods could be applied to the study of spiritual phenomena, creating a bridge between materialistic science and ancient spiritual wisdom. His final discovery, recorded in his last notes, was the revelation that death itself was an illusion created by the limitation of human perspective. What we call death was simply a transition from one dimension of experience to another, like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. Consciousness never ceased to exist, it merely changed its form of expression and its focus of attention. Rees discovered that souls could communicate across dimensions, sending subtle signals, synchronicities, and intuitive guidance to their still incarnate loved ones. Vivid dreams of deceased people, inexplicable feelings of familiar presence, and sudden insights arising during moments of quietude were not products of the imagination, but rather real communications from the non-physical dimensions of existence. In his final moments of research, Dr. Rees personally experienced the multidimensional reality of consciousness. During a deep meditation in his study, he temporarily transcended the limitations of his physical identity and directly accessed the perspective of his eternal soul. In those moments of expansion, he could perceive all his past incarnations simultaneously, understanding how each life had contributed to the total wisdom he now possessed. He saw his lives as a mathematician in ancient Greece, where he had developed his passion for precision and the scientific method. He experienced his existence as a Tibetan monk, where he had cultivated the patience and discipline necessary for his future investigations. He relived his incarnation as a Native American healer, where he had learned about the connection between spirit and matter. Each life had been an essential step on the evolutionary ladder that had prepared him for his mission as a researcher of reincarnation in the 20th century. In this transcendental experience, Rees understood that all souls were connected in an infinite web of consciousness, where every individual thought, action, and experience contributed to the evolution of the whole. He realized that the separation between individuals was a temporary illusion created by the need for specific learning experiences, but that in deeper reality, all consciousnesses were unique aspects of a singular universal intelligence. The final revelation that emerged from this experience was the understanding that reincarnation was not merely an individual phenomenon, but a cosmic mechanism through which universal consciousness itself explored all possibilities of experience through billions of individual perspectives. Each soul was simultaneously a unique drop in the ocean of existence, and the entire ocean experiencing its own nature through the limited perspective of the drop. When Rees returned to normal consciousness, he knew he had touched the fundamental truth about the nature of existence. His decades of scientific research had been confirmed by a direct experience of the multidimensional reality he had studied for so long indirectly. He understood that the time had come to entrust these discoveries to future generations, even knowing that they would challenge the foundations of the entire scientific and philosophical structure of contemporary civilization. In his final reflections, recorded shortly before his death in 2007, Rees wrote about the responsibility each person possesses to awaken to their eternal spiritual nature. He revealed that the veil separating dimensions was becoming increasingly thin, and that more people would begin to spontaneously awaken to memories of past lives and dormant psychic abilities. This collective awakening was part of a larger evolutionary plan that would lead humanity to a new era of expanded consciousness. The secret legacy of Dr. Julian Rees was not merely the scientific proof of reincarnation, but the revelation that each human being is an eternal soul on an evolutionary journey, connected to all other forms of consciousness in a cosmic dance of infinite learning and growth. His hidden discoveries remind us that death is only a transition, that love transcends all dimensions, and that each moment of our earthly existence is a precious opportunity to expand our understanding of who we truly are. The truth that Rees discovered and kept secret for decades was simple yet revolutionary. We are eternal spiritual beings having a temporary human experience, and each life is a precious chapter in an infinite story of conscious evolution. When we understand this reality, each relationship becomes sacred, each challenge transforms into an opportunity for growth, and each farewell reveals itself as merely a see you later on a journey that never truly ends. Dr. Julian Rees's clandestine research has proven that the human soul is indestructible, that true love transcends physical death, and that we are all participants in an extraordinary cosmic adventure where every experience, no matter how mundane, contributes to the infinite expansion of universal consciousness. This is the truth that has been kept hidden for 53 years, but which now, finally, can be shared with those ready to grasp the true magnitude of their eternal existence.